Get on with it.
Hello.
That was my instruction.
Get on with it. That's right.
Morning, everybody, or afternoon, or evening.
Yeah.
Or middle of the night.
Or tomorrow morning, or whatever day or time you're watching this.
Well, you wouldn't say tomorrow morning, because that would just still be morning.
It would, true. Hello, Debs. Are you still there?
Hi.
Oh, you are. Good. Good. We thought the doorman had come or something and you disappeared.
We're all fighting not being washed away, I think, after yesterday's rain.
It's raining here today at the moment. Awful.
Ah, well, the sun's shining in loaders at the moment.
Yeah, it always shines on the righteous, Chris.
Was that why it was raining yesterday?
Obviously.
And, oh, look, the clouds have just come back over.
There we are then. There we are. What's it like in Bridport? We're going to have a weather report. Debs, what's it like in Bridport?
It's quite grey. It's quite grey.
Grey. No snow or anything like that?
No.
They tell me it never snows in Dorset.
I know that's not true.
Yes, so do I. So do I. There we are. We've got a bit more Mark today, haven't we?
Well, we're more in Mark. But we have jumped. At least we've got out of chapter 1.
That's true. That's very true.
We've been stuck in chapter 1, really, since Christmas.
We have.
But we're jumping forward all the way to chapter 8.
Well, when are you going to read it after our pause?
I could do if you like.
I think it's a jolly good idea.
It saves me having to think about what to say about it. I'll leave that to the clever people like Deb.
Yeah, quite right. We'll leave it to the. It's always the female members of our team that are wise and full of wisdom, isn't it?
Well, it's only comparative.
What are you saying about us?
I'll try not to think of a comment like that, but there we are. There we are. Anyway, let's have a pause.
Mark chapter 8. And Jesus began to teach that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and tried to rebuke him, and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." That is the gospel for this Sunday.
It is. It is.
Really, the first thing actually that came to mind there is yesterday I was chatting to some people who worked in the city, and he said a lot of his friends had made an awful lot of money in the city and sort of retired at like age 30, 35 or 40 with millions and millions of pounds in the bank. And he says they're not happy, they're bored, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I thought that was quite an interesting statement, because it wasn't just the old person, he said all of them. And I thought, actually, how appropriate is that to that reading from Mark about gaining the whole world? Because they've got all the money they could possibly want, and yet it hasn't brought them happiness, or it hasn't given them life. It hasn't given them meaning.
Yeah. That particular passage, I always love the part, and it says you've got to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me.
Yeah,
I've always found that so powerful about what it means to follow Jesus in many ways. Because again, I've always seen this as part of that story where Jesus is telling his disciples about what's going to come and what's happening.
Mhm.
And he's going to lose his life, and they'll be persecuted. Now, Christians will forever have to battle on. But if we're serious about what we believe, we have to take up our cross and follow him. But the likelihood of here in this country, particularly of any of us being stoned or persecuted really for our faith, is very little, which always made me fascinated as to why people are perhaps ashamed or shy, or whatever word you want to put in there, about talking about their faith in any way to people. We're very British, and we said, oh, your faith is private, or we've always been taught, haven't you, things you shouldn't talk about, religion and politics, etc., etc. And I always wonder why we're so reticent at talking about what we believe and why we believe it, knowing that we're fairly safe to do so.
Don't you think it's because British people, especially English people, have a very a huge capacity for embarrassment,
Yeah,
and not wanting to, not to feel any kind of uncomfortableness. But the thing that struck me most hearing that passage is that when Jesus says, I will suffer and die, and on the third day I'll rise again. It sounds like, I think this is really human, that they heard all the bad stuff. And, the most miraculous, unbelievable thing he said was, on the third day I'll rise again. And that's not even in the equation. And I don't think they didn't even hear that, I don't think, really. And I think that's true. Like when people give you bad news and there's some good news, you often only hear the bad news. I think that's really human. I think they didn't even hear that. It's like it didn't transmit at all. So
yeah, that's followed up, isn't it? If you read the gospel stories about what happened immediately after Jesus' death, the road to Emmaus and all that stuff, they still haven't got it, even though he's continuing to tell them, this is what's going to happen. And these people and the stranger, Jesus, walks up and says, haven't you heard about the man who was killed but has risen again on the third day?
Yeah.
And of course, the people in the garden on Easter morning, he's been taken from the tomb. We don't know where they've put him. No thought of actually he's done what he said he would have done, he was going to do, which is to rise up.
I think that is very true of how we are. Sometimes when you look back, you only see the bad things. I think Jesus obviously knew what he was doing. I mean, he was telling them, and he says he was very open. He said everything openly, but they could only hear certain amounts. And I think that's very true.
Yeah.
I suppose it's where the whole Easter story is important.
Mm.
I've got as a great reading I often use on Good Friday meditation. Sunday's coming.
Yeah.
You got the desolation of Friday. And for us, we have the desolation of Friday. We know Sunday's coming.
Mm.
And when you're in the midst of that, before Sunday had come for the first disciples, what faith does it take to actually believe that even if you believe somebody's God and they get killed, that they can actually come back to life again? It's difficult, and it's difficult to believe. And so we're going to focus on Good Friday. And I think it's one of the things I've been trying to persuade people this year is actually to be involved in the whole of Easter, not just go to church on Easter Sunday. And celebrate the resurrection.
For me, part of that story has always been, though, that Jesus had actually told in advance, to get to the joy of what we would class as Easter, the Easter joy, you've got to go through the rest of the, the things with me, not just the Holy Week as we portray and tell it, but all the other things that go on ahead, of which this is part. And that sharing. It was interesting. Yesterday, I was talking with the children at the school in their assembly up in Mapperton about beginning of Lent and what was Jesus actually doing. And you could tell the teacher that shared the story as Joe planned, because Joe did a wonderful thing for all the schools to use, and it's all laid out. They didn't have to look up the stories in the various books. She gives them everything. And you could tell that they'd done the work they were meant to do earlier in the week. So by the time I get in on a Wednesday, they were well into the story. It's fascinating to hear the children say, when I was saying, why do you think Jesus actually went out into the wilderness or the devil or the desert? And their thoughts, which we often think as being naive as children, were quite complex. He got there because he needed time to think, one boy said, one at the top of the range. One of the middle children, I don't know, 8 maybe, was saying, well, Jesus needed just to get away from everybody because they were all being a nuisance. And, their thought, Jesus, but I think we've got to be part of that, haven't we? And are we the nuisance that Jesus is trying to get away from? It's very clever, very, very, very thoughtful. But I always say you cannot share in the joy of Easter Day if you haven't gone through all the rest of the, the account of his life.
No, you can't. But I think I agree with that, and I was saying the same thing last week. But I do think it's interesting that that though Jesus said he gave them that potted account of what was going to happen, all this terrible stuff's going to happen, and then I'm going to rise again. That didn't even land in their minds, and I think that's very human, because they were just completely embroiled in the pain and suffering and the loss. I think it's interesting because he said it all, but you can't take it in. And I guess that's what we're saying about the whole idea of making this whole journey of Lent, is that we've got to go through it. We won't be able to take on board the joy of Easter until we've been through on that journey. Because I saw this quote the other day. I'd written something for our magazine about, sometimes it's only when you look back on your journey that you see all the amazing things that you've been through and what you've overcome. And there's this quote from the that sitcom, The Office, and someone saying, when people say, "Oh, remember the good old days," and they're saying, wouldn't it be good if when you're in the good old days, you actually knew it and appreciated it? Because you only ever talk about the good old days when they're over. You think about what was good when you've come through it, and the capacity to actually be in the moment and to say, this is good. I think often we miss that. And That's why we're always looking backwards, probably.
I mean, lots of nostalgia because the good old days when they were actually happening weren't that good, if I remember. Good, were they?
We make a narrative, make a story for ourselves.
Yeah, the 3-day week, no electricity, outside toilet, no double glazing, no central heating. It was just what you accepted and got on with. But when we look back, you can't say they were good compared to what we've got now, I guess, can you?
No. But that could be true for the disciples when they're looking back. They're going, oh, it was hard when Jesus was with us. It was hard. We were always on the move. We were always having conflict with people, blah, 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 blah. But later, when they look back, they think, yeah, but we had Jesus with us. And why didn't we listen to what he said? Why didn't we sort of stop and just drink it in? But we're not like that, are we? And we often only know those things in retrospect.
So does that mean our task to take away from this recording is be careful when you're reflecting on things that you take everything in.
Yeah.
Don't filter out the good and just be depressed by focusing on the bad. And don't filter out all the bad and only look at the good without acknowledging that there was bad as well. Because, the disciples here were trying to, like we're saying, they were filtering out the good bit of the resurrection and focusing on on what Jesus was saying about him being killed.
Yeah.
But actually, let's try and reflect on the whole of life, on the good bits and the bad bits. And social media can be quite a problem there because it's very quick to. Some people only post the good parts of their life, and other people are only post about the bad bits.
Yeah.
How we focus between the two, it's keeping a balance.
That's true, Chris. That is very true. And I guess that's why we need each other, because sometimes we could get a bit glum and just focus on all the difficulties or all the hardship, and then we need someone to remind us of what we've got. And I think that is why we need each other. And going back to what you said last week, Chris, about why we need to come to church, we need the encouragement and support and challenge of other people, don't we?
You most certainly do. And I think that's part of our argument. I think the problem is when we're on our own, we tend to look in on things, and that they always seem worse than perhaps they are. But sharing, important, share, and but also I think to share everything that we understand about what our faith, why we believe our faith is good, but also encourage others to feel able to do that as well.
Yeah. And when anyone's looking at this screen, they'll see me and David in the gloom and Chris in the light with the cross on his shoulder. And then that could be a whole image of the way we look at life.
And there was me thinking, you two have both got your faces illuminated.
Right.
I've got the background illuminated.
Oh, well, that's another way of looking at it, yeah.
The veil has been taken off, you see, Chris. The veil has been taken off in Beaminster. That's the good news. Now,
next week, David, are you going to take your veil off so that we can see the back, the true you with all your background lit up?
Yeah, well, you see, the real problem is, Chris, that we're following the diocesan eco policy of having as little light burning as we physically can. No heating on, and all that.
That's why you're the only one without a jumper on.
It's us people from up north or Midlands. This is purely Bermudan down here at the moment. What's wrong with it? You southern softies can't cope, can you?
I'm from Manchester, matey.
Yeah, you are. That's true. You're used to the wet, aren't you? Yeah. Used to the wet. I talked to my daughter in Manchester last night, and she was saying, I said, "What's it like?" She said, "You don't need to ask. You know what it's like in Manchester."
Yeah.
So there we are. Yeah. So, but it is positively warm, you see, down here. I thought about taking my shirt off, but that could drive people away.
Then we really would want you to be in the glum and the dim, so we couldn't see.
Thanks, Chris. you'd have soon press that button, wouldn't you? Close him off. Get rid of
Hey,
it.
is this another public vote?
We could have another public vote.
Yeah,
Let's
do
do
we
it.
want to see David without his shirt on?
But have we got Polly to do the adjudication? He's sure out.
She's fallen asleep. I'll have to wake her up.
Yeah, adjudication for Polly. Yeah, public vote. Do you want to keep my shirt on and off? Now, this could be a frightening moment in time, couldn't it? There we are.
Leave in the comments below. That's probably the thing to do, isn't it? We don't have to have a live vote this week.
Yeah.
You can have a vote and all the comments that people who watch it.
Yeah. They're probably frightened already. The thought alone has put fear into their hearts. Poor people. There we are.
The thought of David taking his shirt off bring us back to the scripture of "Get behind me, Satan," says.
Yes, we've come full circle.
Yeah, exactly. Well done, Chris. Very cleverly done. You see, I fed you with the line, of course.
Yeah, that is very clever, Chris. Well done.
There we are. Well, dear viewer, good to see you. As ever, we always welcome comments, whether it be on me in the shirt or whether it be on Chris being, the only bright spark in the team. Or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But busy days ahead. You've got a doorman coming. We've got other bits and pieces. What have you got on today, Chris? Anything important?
No, I've got a family coming to talk to me about a funeral this morning. Meeting with my administrator at lunchtime. Wedding rehearsal this afternoon. School governors meeting at 5 o'clock, and then Lent course this evening.
Busy boy. One of us has to keep
any of it yet.
One of us has to keep up the the thing. But there we are. Lots to do.
Yeah, always lots to do.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
So I don't mind it raining today because I've got too much to do to take any notice.
Yeah.
That's me taking up my cross for the day.
It's not going to get any better. I've seen that. I looked at the weather app. It's windy and rainy all day till 5 o'clock. So you're quite right. A good day to stop in and catch up on the piles of work and back up because we're out so much of the other time.
Yeah.
And there we are. Well, good. Well, thank you all very much. We look forward to seeing you next week. I'm not sure there's a bit more, but let me have a look. Is there a bit more, Mark, you think, next week? Have a look in my book. Oh, no, we've got some John next week.
Oh, wow.
John.
Oh, yeah. I'll be out I won't have any ideas next week because I've got the Archdeacon preaching next Sunday.
Have you?
Oh, have you?
On John chapter 2.
Yeah. 10 Commandments are the other readings of Exodus, I think. We could look at the 10 Commandments, couldn't we?
Oh, we could do, couldn't we?
Mm.
Yeah. That means we've got to learn them all ourselves.
Soon find out which ones we like and don't like. I've never been quite too coveting my neighbour's ass personally, but we could discuss that next week, couldn't we?
I think that's another public vote. Which commandment would you like us to talk about?
Oh, which one would you like us to avoid?
Or avoid?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, 10 Commandments. Should we look at the 10 Commandments? That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No comment.
Oh, Deb. Yeah, there we are. Lovely. Well, good to see you all. And we'll see you again next week, whether it's 10 Commandments or something else. But we'll see you anyway next week.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.